It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You're live with Expresso. Thank you so much for keeping it locked. Time now to turn to legal matters. Time for another edition of our Wednesday feature where we focus on maybe the unconventional side of law. It's called So Now What? And that's often the question we are left asking. We are joined once again by our expert lawyer and director at legalese.co.za, Eitan Stern. So today's question is this. I have dangerous weapons in my home and on my person. So now what? We'll be focusing on what your legal rights and recourses are when it comes to legally owning and bearing arms. If there are any children present in the room during this segment, parental guidance is advised. Please be aware. Eitan, welcome back, bud.
Thanks a lot. Nice
We were just actually speaking now in the break, you and I, about the incident that happened last week Monday at Kialami Estate. We see people fighting with swords, with everything.
I think it was a bayonet.
Is that what it was?
I don't even know what it is.
Men.
But what
Kialami Estate.
No, man, let's be serious here. What is considered a illegal weapon or... Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in South African law, you've got two pieces of legislation that deal with dangerous weapons and guns. You have the Firearms Control Act, which controls everything around guns, and a gun is defined as something which pushes a bullet through a chamber. And then you have the Dangerous Weapon Act. And a dangerous weapon can essentially be anything if it's used, you know, it could be a sword, it could be a bayonet, it could be a toothbrush, really. It could be anything if you're using it in a way which is intended to cause bodily harm to someone else. So the incident in Kialami Estate, those guys were using swords and knives, things that are not illegal to own, but when used in that way, it is certainly an illegal act.
Definitely illegal. So what are those typical circumstances where civilians would be owning dangerous weapons?
Yeah, a gun on dangerous, it's 100%. So, you know, in South Africa, unfortunately, we do have issues of crime in South Africa, so people will want to own guns for self-defense reasons, even though the statistics are, you know, horribly prove that they do not help for self-defense, but people still want to own them for self-defense. And then some people own them for sports, such as hunting, which, again, you know, I'm not entirely sure why people want to hunt, but it is legal to do it in certain circumstances. So if you want to own a gun, you need to have a license, and then there are specific types of licenses you can get. You can get licenses to carry a gun for your private self. You can get a license to carry a gun for work. You can get a license to carry a gun for hunting. But it's really crucial that if you own a gun, you need to have a license. And for other sorts of weapons, for knives, etc., you know, the Dangerous Weapon Act says we're allowed to own these things, but we're not allowed to use them in a dangerous setting. So, yeah. Then
what would be a dangerous setting? Like, yes, it's for self-defense, but then when would you take out this or then use it, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, guns, you know, you in South Africa, you've got the right to self-defense, which if someone, now self-defense is not, you know, someone, you know, says, I don't like your shirt, now you're going to bring out your gun. That's not self-defense. If someone is trying to cause grievous bodily harm to you or your family, or in some very, very limited circumstances, your property, such as, say, a shop owner who keeps having their shop robbed, and that's their livelihood, which is being attacked, then you're allowed to use a weapon in self-defense. You're certainly not allowed to use a weapon to show off, to threaten someone, to prove your masculinity. All these things are not acceptable and certainly illegal.
Maybe we can expand on this in the second segment that we have, but so many legally bought and owned firearms end up being utilized in illegal activities. Do you have what are the laws around keeping a firearm if that firearm gets stolen? Are you in any way legally liable for what happens after the fact? What happens when you kind of move beyond that legal phase?
For sure. So certainly when someone gets their gun license, this is the sort of thing that they're going to have to learn, and it's part of the test. And so if you own a firearm, it needs to be kept in a safe, in your home, not loaded, etc. And there are circumstances that if you get your weapon stolen, you could be liable. So, you know, the country or the law giving you permission to own a firearm, a dangerous weapon which can kill people, children, animals, it comes with certain responsibilities. So, you know, storing it properly, not letting people get access to it, and certainly not brandishing it in public.
All right, so we're going to continue this discussion asking the question, so now what when it comes to bearing arms?
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
So we are continuing a very important discussion in our Wednesday edition of So Now What? Eitan Stern, our expert in all legal matters from legalese.co.za, is here to answer our questions, burning questions relating to bearing arms, legally and illegally. And we know certainly both cases can be found here in South Africa.
Sure.
When we look at the legally owned firearm specifically, when is it permissible to kind of brandish your arms in public, if you will?
Okay. So brandishing your arm in public when in an illegal circumstances is a very, very serious offence, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So where you can do it is again when there's self-defence. So when there actually is a threat against you or your family, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it needs to be kept on a holster, on your body, and if you do have a gun license, you would have gone through the procedure of what you need to do to carry it in public. But it either needs to be holstered or it really needs to be a real threat to you.
Let's talk about illegally. So what are
Sure.
some of the penalties that they can incur if they're carrying it illegally and using it in an illegal manner?
Okay, so if you are caught with a firearm that you are not licensed to own, you can get up to 15 years in jail. It's a very serious offence.
Yeah, understandably, yeah.
And if you legally own a firearm and you bring it out in public in an unlawful circumstance or when you're not supposed to, then you can get up to 2 years in jail or quite a serious fine. So the penalties can be quite extreme, but of course the biggest penalty of all is that if you own a gun and you use it in a bad circumstance, you can potentially kill someone, which obviously is something which is going to be way worse than spending some time in jail. And as I said earlier, the statistics around gun ownership is in general these things are not used for anything good. Generally they're used for really bad things. So if you're going to own one, you got to be super, super careful around
Yeah, it comes with massive responsibilities. When we, again, focus on the nonsense that played out at Kyalami Estate, obviously this has been turned into memes. It has borne a whole lot of comic kind of, you know, some incredible videos have been doing the rounds. Well, this is the thing, but don't ever think that something like that is going to happen without it being recorded. What are you allowed to record something like that? And what should you do if you see a public disturbance, if you will, like that playing out?
So recording things is always allowed, you know, and recording a crime in many circumstances is even advisable. Why? Because a video can then be evidence of the crime. Without that video, there's no evidence of what happened. So I think that the recording part is great. The part I'm not so sure about is posting on social media, because if you're recording a crime,
a meme.
what you should then be doing is turning that over to the police and not to Mark Zuckerberg. You know, the police can then use it for investigations, whereas Facebook and is going to put it on the internet, which isn't going to, you know, have much good in putting these people behind bars. Of course, when you're posting videos of anyone online, you need to remember that there are then issues of privacy, etc., which I don't think we can go into too deeply here, but it's always a risk. But in general, you know, if you see an incident, great to record it, but then turn that over to the police, not to the internet.
Tell me something, sorry to interject there, but would the police need to open a case? Would one of those that were involved in the fracas need to open a case? I mean, how much danger, those guys, the people involved in that fight, how much danger are they in of being prosecuted?
Okay, so there's two kind of different actions which happen here. There's what we call civil claims, which is where one person causes harm to another person. So let's say you bump into someone's car, you damage that person's car, they've got a claim. So in this instance, the parties could claim against each other. The other one is a criminal action, and that is stuff like brandishing, you know, according to the Dangerous Weapons Act, so using weapons unlawfully in public. So whether the people press charges against each other, these people have definitely committed crimes, and it's then the police's job to investigate, arrest them, and hopefully put them behind bars.
All right.
Scary
stuff. So I think most importantly, just bear in mind that when it comes to bearing arms, there are massive responsibilities involved. Do your homework before you even look at that. But Eitan, thank you so much for a revealing chat, if not a little sobering and scary at the same time. We'll see you in a moment.